Hey everybody, Mike here. Welcome to the channel and welcome to a very exciting video. Well, I think it's exciting anyway because I'm going to be talking about a lot of new things and a lot of things that you have been asking me about. So, for example, USD or Universal Scene Description developed by Pixar, NVIDIA's Omniverse, how does that work? What is it? What's the platform like? Is it free? What kind of apps are in there? All that kind of stuff, right? I'm going to be working in Marvelous Designer, one of my favorite applications, and I'm also going to be working in Maya, of course. I'm going to be taking these assets and bringing them into NVIDIA Omniverse to show you the power, right? And yeah, if you haven't heard of Omniverse, definitely check it out. It is a super game changer, right? Now, this is going to be quite a long video, I suspect, so get your beverage of choice, sit back, relax, and enjoy the fun. Here we go. Okay everybody, so what is USD or Universal Scene Description? Well, let's start at the beginning. If you are familiar with 3D, then you know that you have all different types of file formats and scene formats, right? Depending on what you're working in. If you're working in Blender or 3ds Max or Maya or ZBrush or whatever, right? So you have your OBJ files, you have your FBX files, and so forth and so on. Now imagine all these different applications in a world where people are collaborating online and they all have to work on a massive project together. That is a nightmare, right? Now that brings us to Pixar. Pixar developed USD or Universal Scene Description, and that allows them to collaborate while they're all talking the same language, so to speak, right? So it's a file format, but much more than that, that allows them to collaborate much cleaner, much faster, and much more efficient. Now, that USD or Universal Scene Description has become the basis for a new platform developed by NVIDIA called Omniverse. So let's get started on the NVIDIA website. We're not in the actual platform just yet, for the simple reason that I want to kind of lay out the land as far as, you know, where you can get support, where the forums are, and so forth and so on. So let's see. News, obviously, you know, any updates or anything like that, you would find that here. Support, documentation and everything works. Enterprise support if you are working as a corporation. Forums, super important to collaborate with other users. System requirements, that is a thing for sure, because this is quite a beefy thing, right? So if you are working on your Commodore 64, then forget it, yeah? Okay, community, very cool contest going on, and I suggest you check out the marbles footage that has been made with Omniverse. It's absolutely awesome. Gallery, of course, showing off what's what, and then social media, a whole bunch. You can check all that out. Learning, blogs, training, that kind of thing. Let's say you want to have specific training because you have a corporation and you want your team to be trained. You can find it here as well. And of course, tutorials. Now, the platform itself, we're going to get into that in a second. And then solutions, depending on who you are and what you are, can be for creators, developers, enterprise. So you pick what is suitable for you. Now, the platform, like I said, is a suite containing apps. Here's an overview of all of these apps, and you see a whole list. Now, a couple of examples: audio to face, code, create. If you want to know what these are, you click on all apps, and you will get this overview. Now, for example, audio to face, generate expressive facial animation just from an audio source, AI powered. I tried this, it's super cool. You can literally take an audio file, you can take a 3D model, and the audio file will basically make the model move according to the audio file, right? Coding, the create application. This is one that I use most, I would say. This is more towards generic 3D work. You have simulation apps, you have machinima if you are more into animation and you want to sync up, I don't know, dance moves, running, fighting, that kind of thing, yeah? Composer, and so forth and so on. Now, this is not necessarily where you pick the apps you want, and that is the cool thing. Once you have Omniverse installed, you can pick and choose. So you don't have to run all of them. You just pick the ones you want, you install them, you use them, yeah? Okay, so that's in general an overview. I guess next up is to show you guys how you can actually get Omniverse and get started, right? Here we go. Okay, so we are on the NVIDIA page where we can download the actual suite or the actual platform called Omniverse. Now, if you are a single user, so for individuals, this is completely free, including all of the applications, which is sweet, right? Now, if you're an enterprise, you can try it for free, but there are costs involved later on if you want to deploy it on your teams, yeah? Anyway, we're going to go with the standard for individuals. Now, you're probably thinking, well, wait, this is a collaboration platform, so how is that useful if I'm an individual? Well, trust me, it is, because I, for example, work as a freelance artist, and this is not only about collaborating between two remote locations, but it's also a collaboration between applications. Let's say I'm working in Maya and also in Marvelous Designer. I can use applications that are present in Omniverse to bring all these assets together real time, right? So I would have something created in Maya, I would bring it into, let's say, Omniverse Create. I would be working on something in Marvelous Designer and it would update live in Create on top of my Maya model while I'm working on it. Anyway, I'll show you that all later, yeah? So here's the download page. Now you click on download free if you're an individual. If you're an enterprise, you click on try it for free. I'm going to click on this one. Of course, I already did all this. What you do is you click on whether you are a creator or developer. You fill in all your details to register on NVIDIA, which is again free. And then you click on submit. That will allow you to download the files you need. You run the install and it will create the bare bone of the Omniverse platform, I would say, right? And then from there, you start to pick and choose all the components you want. So it's time to open up Omniverse and have a first look. Here we go. All right, well, get ready to get your mind blown. Okay, so yeah, this is the opening page. Now, this looks a little bit like a website. That is not what this is. This is actually inside the application called Omniverse, right? Now, let me start with the tabs that are important, but lead towards the one you're going to be using, right? First tab, news, what's going on, a whole bunch of pages where you can get more information on what's going on as far as app development, that kind of thing. Definitely check that out. I'm going to jump all the way to the right here, click on Learn. That will have a lot of information on Omniverse workflow tutorials, application tutorials, so you can study to your heart's content. And I'm going to refer to this one in a minute as well. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back. We're going to go to our nucleus. Now, what's the nucleus? The nucleus is basically what you need to create a local host. It's going to look different for you because you won't have any of this yet. You need to create a local host, and that local host will be sitting on your machine. And then if you are working with somebody else in a different location, they will have a local host as well. You can have a local host or a host in a cloud server. You can have it on a server depending on your circumstances, right? Now in my scenario, because I'm working on my own system, I have a local host. Now that brings me to the one tab I just mentioned, which is this one, and that is because you will have questions about, okay, how do I create the local host? What's the best situation for me? And so forth and so on. Now, if I were to explain every step there is in Omniverse, this tutorial would take 2 years, right? There are a bunch of tutorials out there if you run into any problems with that. I thought it was fairly easy to do, but just in case, right? So you create a nucleus, you create a local host, and it will be sitting somewhere on your system, and that is kind of the common denominator if you, for example, are working between different applications on your system, okay? Then we have the exchange. Now the exchange is basically, let's call it the library of what's available. You have applications to choose from, you have connectors to choose from, content you can choose from, and so on. So if I were to click on apps, for example, here are a couple of mentions that I showed you before. For example, audio to face, right? And then what you can do is, if this is what you want added to your system, you click on install. Okay, so you read all about what's going on, what is it for, what version is it, and you click on install. Now, based on the apps that you choose here to install, they will be added to your library. So if I click on library, this is basically my overview. So what I've installed on my system is the app called Create, the app called Machinima, and the Marbles RTX. Now, in addition to apps, I installed file management tools that are also available on Exchange, called Cache and Drive Beta. And then connectors. And connectors are super important, because looking at connectors, I, for example, have a connector for Maya, and I also am installing the connector for Marvelous Designer, right? So if I were to go in here, and I'll just quickly show you, let's see, where's my search bar here? Should be able to do that. I think just here, click on add. Oh, there you go. Yeah, if I type in Marvelous Designer, you'll see that there is an Omniverse connector, and not just any connector. Specifically, Marvelous Designer went above and beyond to create a super cool connection that works very, very well. Now, it works through an external link in this case. If I click on this, it says external link. Doesn't matter, very easy to install, okay? And of course I did that. So we're going to go back to my library. So these are all the things that I have installed. Now, so that covers where you can find the setup files. Then you install them. You will get this overview, the Omniverse overview. You will pick and choose the apps you want. And basically what's left is to go into Maya and Marvelous Designer, create some cool things, and then show you how this actually works. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're in Maya, and before I continue, I just want to let you know that there are going to be timestamps below, so you can pick and choose what you want to see. I mean, I don't want to rush any part of the video, so if you at any point want to skip something or jump ahead or whatnot, it's all good, right? So yeah, I'm going to start by creating something in Maya. I'm going to do the same in Marvelous Designer, and then we're going to bring everything together in Omniverse Create, right? But before we do that, here we are in Maya. Okay. Now you can see up here that I actually did install Omniverse, and I'm not going to get into what this does just yet. We're first going to make something. Now, the idea that I had is I'm going to make a bed in Maya, and then I'm going to make a bed cover, or duvet, I think it's called, in Marvelous Designer, and then bring that together in Create, right? Okay, so let's get started. We're going to go to modeling, polygon modeling. Let's take a cube. Here we go. And yeah, I mean, this is a fairly simple model, so don't think I'm going to make it a time lapse, but I am not going to be talking about it too much either, right? Okay, it doesn't have to be a super fancy bed, just so you get the idea, yeah. Okay, so we have that. We're going to go in, we're going to take another cube, we're going to hit W, move that over. Let's see, we'll do that from here. And then we'll scale it up. Something like this, hit W, bring that down. And again, it's not something super complicated at all. It's just to give you an idea of how things work, right? Control D to duplicate, move it over here. We're going to go in and we're going to make sure that's a clean alignment. 4 for wireframe mode. Let's move that up a little bit, like so. Looks good. We're going to drag select the whole thing. We're going to Control D to duplicate, hit W to move that over to, let's say, somewhere around there. That's all good. We're going to jump to our perspective mode. There you have it. Select both. Control G to group. We're going to go to center pivot. Jump to the top. Hit W to move it. Hold down X. Snap it. And then we're going to move it up as well. And okay, there you go. All right, so we're going to make a siding. I don't know what that's called. The side of the bed, you know what I mean? Right, we're going to pull it out like so. Jump to the top here. Extend that a bit further, like so. The W, move that over here. And then actually we'll have to bring that back a little bit. All right, let's look at the height here. Hit W, move that up, scale it a little bit. That would be about right, I would say. We're going to Control D to duplicate. We're going to move that over like so. Select them both. Control G to group. Hit W and make sure it's centered. There you go. And then, of course, we're going to need some kind of base in here. Yeah. And again, like I said, super simple, right? All right, let's make some slats. Shouldn't take too long. All right, let's make that a bit thinner, like this. And I actually do want to have a little bit of a bend in it, right? So let's bring this down a bit. Insert edge lobe, let's do 3 or so. And then hit Q on the keyboard. We're going to go to vertex. We're going to drag select these. Hit W. Very slightly raise that. Take the one in the middle. And do the same. All right. So we got this. We're going to Control D to duplicate. We're going to hit W. We're going to move that over to, I would say, about there. And then we're going to hit Shift D. And put them in here, and then voila, we have one very simple bed. All right, so now let's create a mattress for this guy. So we're going to take a cube, we're going to hit W, we're going to move that up, we're going to hit R, we're going to start to scale that, and let's scale that to about there, I would say, and then scale it out like so. And then, of course, we need to bring it down a lot. After frame, let's get in here. Let's put it on there. And of course, we don't want to have a mattress that's completely square. Let me just give that some thickness like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click at object mode. We're going to hit Control 1 to isolate it. Insert edge loop, and let's do, I don't know, we'll do 5 to start with, 5 here, 5 here. That should be fine. Q on the keyboard, let's hit preview smooth. Get something like this, not too bad. Hit 1 to go back. We're just gonna go in and put some in here as well. Okay. We're gonna hit 3 to preview smooth. That looks a lot better. So let's go up to mesh and smooth to actually smooth instead of just preview smooth. Hit 1 to go back. There you go. We're gonna control 1 again. So here is our super simple bed with a mattress in it and with the slats, right? Cool. Select the whole thing. We're gonna go to zero everything out, delete the history, freeze transformation, right? And then we are gonna jump into Marvelous Designer and we are gonna create our duvet. Here we go. Alrighty, well, Marvelous Designer, and it's the newest one. It's version 12. And I'm so excited about it because I started working in Marvelous Designer, I think 5 or 6 versions ago. And yeah, I loved it ever since. Not only because I use it to create clothing for 3D assets, models and whatnot, but also because in real life I make a lot of leather projects like bags and hiking gear and whatnot, and I actually use Marvelous Designer to create the patterns. So yeah, and I get to see the 3D version as well. So how cool is that, right? Anyway, without further ado, we're gonna start working on our duvet. Now, if you by any chance have a layout that looks different from mine, it's very easy to reset that. You're just going to go up to settings and preferences and reset to default layout, right? Click on that, give it a second, and boom, there you go. Now, I do have the Omniverse connector already installed here. And if you go to Window and Omniverse connector, you'll see that there is a server that I can add and I can refresh and all that, but we'll get all to that. We'll get to all that later, right? Okay, let's focus on our duvet. So we're gonna go and create a rectangle, and let's drag that out, maybe something like this. And we're not gonna worry too much about the length or size just yet, yeah? So that's what we have so far. Then we're gonna go to our transform. We're gonna click on the line, edit pattern, this one. We're gonna click on this line right here, and we're gonna right click, and we're gonna go to create an offset as an internal line. What I want is for this line to be repeated in the vertical direction, okay? Now, I'm not sure of the distance. I do want to say, let's have 10 or so. And let me increase and see how that will look, whether I need to change anything or not. I think that's a perfect fit, so 13.5 and 10. And of course, if you're not working centimeters and you're using a, if you're US based, for example, you can change all that, right? But that's how I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna click on OK right here, which added those. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to click on this top line right here, and I'm basically going to repeat the process. So I'm going to right click. I want this to be an offset internal line, 13.5. Of course, this time the distance is the same, but I need to add offsets because it's longer. That doesn't look like a perfect fit. So let me set that to 15, and then let's see, I'll do 13, and then what I'll do is I'll take this guy and I'll slightly bring that up like so. All right, problem solved. Now this is of course one side, and let me just close this window for a second here so we've got a little bit more space. This is of course our 3D space, this is our 2D space, and I need 2 of those, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select this guy, Control C, Control V to duplicate. So now I got 2 of them. And let me put the second one right there. And I most likely need to reverse that one. So I'm going to use the gizmo. I'm going to move this guy, click on it, move it back, and move it over here, and move it down. And then I'm going to right click on it, and I want this to flip horizontally. Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. So let's stitch this together. So I got my sewing symbol right here. I'm going to go and click on this guy, and then I'm going to move it over here and click and see if that's straight, and it is. And I'm going to repeat that for the others. Right, that's all in place. It doesn't look like I crossed any lines here, so that's all good. And yeah, what we're going to do next is we're going to take this whole thing right here. So this guy and this guy, and we're going to hit the gizmo because I want to turn this, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over like so, because I want to simulate it that way. Now, with this still selected, we're going to go into our pressure tab, and our pressure tab is here under fabric, and I'm going to bump this pressure up to 24. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to hit simulate and see what it looks like. Here we go. And gravity is gonna throw it down on the floor. There you have it. And this is looking quite nice. Actually, exactly as I want it. And again, the cool thing is you can grab the point, for example, and then just throw it down if you like, or even throw it over like this. And just let go and have it settle, and then you'll get some very realistic looking fabric, right? All right, cool. So we got our bed, we got our duvet, and it is time to bring everything together. Here we go. Alrighty, well, as you can see, we're in Maya, and it's time to connect with Omniverse Create. So here's the bed that I created. Let me just push that up a little bit. So it's kind of sitting on the floor correctly. And that looks pretty good. All right. Okay, cool. So we got our bed. What we're going to do is we're going to clean it up a little bit. So we're going to go to our Poly Modeling tab. We're going to zero everything out. We're going to delete the history. We're going to center the pivot. And then we're going to go open up the outliner. Make sure everything is clean. I named it bed, so we're all good to go. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to bring this into Omniverse as a USD file, and I want it to live update. So the idea is that I will have an asset from Marvelous Designer live linked to Create, and I'll have an asset from Maya live linked to Create. And whenever I change something in Marvelous Designer or in Maya, you will see it update live in Create. Now, the idea here is if you are working in a team and you're collaborating on a scene, let's say a room full of props, multiple people can be working on assets and it will update live, and you will see things change in a room while you are working on that room, right? That's kind of the idea. Now, like I said before, if it's just you working on this, you will have the opportunity to work in multiple applications at the same time and real time see what's going on, right? Okay, so enough about that. It's time to get active. So we got our bed. What we need to do, first make sure your Omniverse plugin is loaded. If it is not, you wouldn't see this or this here. Again, what you would do, you would go to Windows, Settings, Preferences, Plugin Manager. You would type in Omni, and you would get Omniverse Maya Loader, right? In my case, it's loaded, so that's all good. Now, what I need to do, I need to open up this tab here and I click on Connect. When I do that, it's going to say, where do you want to connect? Localhost by default. So just click on Sign In. Now, when I do that, if you open up the Omniverse tab here, you'll see that the little puppet guy on the left that was red is now green. And it is now connected to Omniverse. If I click on it again, it's red. Click on it again, sign in, it's green. So this and that is the same thing, right? Okay, so now that it's connected, what I need to do is I need to export my bed as a USD file to the local host, so it will be visible in Create, right? So I can do that here. I can click on this little arrow which says export to USD, or I can do it here by clicking on export. I'm just going to use the arrow key here, and I need to select where. Well, I'm in the path of my local host under users, and this is the location where I want it. And then on the right here you have a couple of options. I'm going to leave everything alone, maybe with the exception of this one that I want to explain. If you have a simple prop, you click on prop. If it's something with animation, you would click accordingly, right? I'm just going to leave it at prop, and I'm going to click on export. And of course I need to give it a name down here. So let's call this bed Maya, right? And .usd. Export. Well, that went quite fast. Time to jump into Omniverse Create. All right, so we're in Omniverse Create, and as you can see, bed Maya.usd has been added because I set it to this path. And the only thing I need to do to get it into my scene is to double click on it or drag it in. So I'm just going to double click. It's going to bring that in, and you might not see it, but trust me when I say here it is. And it's quite dark, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up to create, we're going to go to lights, and let's go to dome light. And then you can go in and change the settings if you like. You can change the color temperature. You can go in here and change the intensity if you want. You can plug in HDRI files. You can change the exposure, all of that cool stuff, right? You can go in here and plug in textures. You can do tons and tons of things. But the idea here is to show you how the live link works, right? So now we have the bed in Maya, we have the bed in Omniverse Create. What I need to do is I need to create a live session. So I'm going to go to the top right here with the lightning bolt where it says live, click on the little down arrow and click on create session. And I'm going to create a new session. I'm going to call this live Maya Create, all right? Okay, I'm going to click on create. And I'm going to say save and join. There you have it. And now I get this green bar right here, and you can see up in the corner that's green. That's now live. Now I need to join in Maya as well, of course, right? So we're going to go back to Maya. And here, if you look at this menu, you see the little lightning bolt that we saw before, and it says enable live. So let's click on that, and it's going to say, okay, do you want to join? Yes, I do. What do I want to join? Live Maya Create. Okay, let's join. Alrighty. So now, believe it or not, we have a live link. And the best way to show you is to put these side by side, right? Hang on. Okay, so we're going to go in here, and I don't want to hit that sphere. There you go. So right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly change something to the bed, right? So I'm going to right click, go to vertex, drag a couple of vertices, hit W and move them up like that. And boom, there you go. The bed immediately changes, right? That's the whole idea here. Now, just take a moment to have this sink in. What does this mean, right? I mean, you could say, well, yeah, you're working two applications at the same time. Big deal. That's not what this is at all. Omniverse is a platform that is purely for collaboration purposes, right? So it allows multiple people to work on, let's say, the same scene at the same time. So I can be working on textures on this bed, right? Whereas somebody else is working on the nightstand and somebody else is working on the carpet. And you will see everything being updated live in Omniverse Create, while at the same time everybody can work in their individual applications. Now, because I'm just working on this myself, the benefits for me are that I can work in Maya, in Marvelous Designer, and in Omniverse at the same time. So I can go into Maya, change something, go into Marvelous Designer, change something, and it will help me to fine-tune my scene, right? So that's how the live link works with Maya and Omniverse Create. And next up is Marvelous Designer. Here we go. Okay, everybody, well, it's time to dive into Marvelous Designer. Now, I want to talk about USD layers and the Omniverse connector, but before we do that, make sure you go into your launcher and click on Create and click on Launch, right? Now, I already did that, but make sure that's running. And mine is, and I'll show you. There you have it, right? So we don't need this just now. I'm just going to put this out onto the right here, but just so you know, right? Cool. So now that we have that running, if we go into Marvelous Designer, and I'm just going to go in here and reset to the default layout, there are two windows that are mainly that are quite important when it comes to Omniverse. And they can both be found under the drop-down menus. So if I go to Library, I can go down to USD Layer, which will open this. And over here, I can go under Fabric, and I can go to Omniverse Connector, right? Now, the Omniverse connector will allow us to be connected to Omniverse, and I can go in here, click on this little guy, Add Server. By default, that's called localhost. So there's that. We're going to add that server. And there you go. And now if I click on that, you can see, I'll give it a second, you can see the whole path and everything set up, right? And then on the other side, the USD layer, that is something that we need to create. So when we are creating something in Marvelous Designer and we're saving that out, right, we have to save that to a USD layer, kind of in a stack, right? So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click on Create because I want to create a layer. Now, it's going to ask me to create a folder, and I created one on my desktop, and I just called it USD. There it is, right? And that's the path I want, and I want to save something called, I don't know, let's say USD underscore layer underscore 1, right? Okay, so that's created right there. So now if I have something created here and I want to export that, I can save it to that layer. And we'll do that in a second, but just so you know how that works, right? So two things to remember here, the Omniverse connector window to actually connect to Omniverse, right? And then the USD layer window where you create a layer so you have somewhere to save your file to. Okay, so next up, we're going to export USD files. All right, so now that we have this window connected and we got this USD layer created, we're going to create something, right? So we're going to go in here, just create a rectangle, why not? And it doesn't have to be anything complex, it's just a simple approach, right? And then what we'll do is we'll go in here, we're going to transform pattern, and I'm going to right click on it, and let's do copy, and then we're going to go back in here and paste. Yeah, and there you have it. Now, if I were to select both of these and I clicked on simulate, you would see them drop. So one's already on the floor, the other one's dropping, right? And I'm just going to stop it right there. And it really doesn't matter what we create as long as you understand the method, right? So now that we have this, we want to export it. And you can do that by either selecting your files here in the 2D window or select it here in the 3D window. It doesn't really matter, right? Now, what we're going to do is make sure we got them both selected. And then we're going to right click and go to export to USD layer. Okay, we'll give it a second. It's going to ask us a mesh path and a material path. So if we add a material to this, right, let's say a fabric, we would give a name to that material. Right now we're just going to use the default material. So we're going to call the mesh, let's call it, I don't know, underscore 2 blankets, right? And then material, we really don't have any, so no material. And I'm going to go and click on OK, right? So that has now been put into this layer that we created, okay? So it has a material, no mat, and it has 2 blankets saved in there, right? So that's how you do that. Now you have the option to select one or both. So you can select one of these or both of them. If you only want to select one, you can do the process I just showed you. If you want to have everything in your scene, you simply go up to File and then go to Export USD and follow that process, right? So that's how you export USD files. Next up, how do you import them? Okay, so let's say you started a brand new scene in Marvelous Designer and you want to import a USD file, right? What you do is you go up to File, we're going to go to Import, we're going to select the USD. We're going to look for, I don't know, let's take any old file here. And what you're going to do here is you're going to select what type of load you want. Do you want to load this as an avatar or do you want to load this as a prop? Big difference, right? So I got less options here. If I load it as a prop, if I load it as an avatar, then I need to fill out some stuff, right? For example, auto create fitting suit. Now I don't want that. I just want it to be a prop. So we're going to click on OK. And it's going to bring that in, right? So that's pretty much how easy that is. Now it's slightly different if you want to add something. So I brought this in, right? A couple of these duvets that I created. Let's say I want to add something to this scene. Well, what you do then is go to File, Import Add, and then USD. And then you can select, for example, another item and just click on Open and it will be added to the scene without removing that, right? So pretty straightforward. Okay, so next up, I'm going to show you how to clear your USD layer, right? So we got this going on here, and let's say I don't want any of that. I want it cleared, okay? So what you're going to do is you're simply going to go up here under the USD layer, and you're going to click on Clear. Now, that's gone, right? Now, you might think, well, hey, I now deleted my files. You have not. The only thing you did is you cleared up that USD layer stack, okay? Okay, next up, what I wanted to share with you is how to create a live session, right? Now, for that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of things. First of all, we're in Marvelous Designer. I started a new scene here. We're going to go into Add Server as we did before. We'll call it localhost as we did before. Add that server. Okay, and it's going to be added here. So there you go. It's building up. And then, as we did before, a new USD layer. So let's call this create, and then let's call this, I don't know, live session, for example, right? And I want to have that in the right stack here, and there we go. So we're all set as far as Marvelous Designer is concerned. Next up, we're going to dive into Omniverse Create. Here we go. Okay, so we're in Create. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our local host under our Omniverse directory, right? Local hosts. So we're going to open that up, and let's see if I can find a file to use. We've got one here called blanket, right? I'm going to double click on that, and okay, good. So that's another example that I created. Okay, so on the right hand side, we loaded up that file called blanket. Then on the left hand side, in Marvelous Designer, we're going to make sure that everything is set up properly. So first we're going to go to the Omniverse connector, and we only have the option add server, but we already did that. As you can see, we're in localhost and so forth, right? Then we need to create a USD layer. So we're going to go in here, and we did this before, but just so you know, right? So we're going to go to create. Let's call this, I don't know, we'll call it live session. Save that, and there you go. So we got that going. Now what we need to do is we need to open the same file. And that's important because if you're not opening the same file from the same location, you won't be able to join that session, right? So on the right hand side under the live button, we're going to go in here, we're going to create a session. Let's call this live blanket 1, right? Click on create. You can see we now have a green button, it's live. And now over here, we need to join that same session. So what we're going to do is make sure that we have the same file opened. You need to do that first. So double click on that, open that up. And now instead of add server, it says join session. So now you can join that session, and it's called live blanket 1. We're going to click on join. There you go. So we now have a new live connection between the two. So if I were to select this guy and raise it up just a little bit, right? And I right click and go to export to USD layer, it will go to that live session on the left. Click on it. And it's going to ask me for a mesh name. Let's call it blanket, and let's call this no material. Click on OK. And there you go. You see it jump up on the right. So that's how that works. Now, if you are changing something that is not in that same layer, you can still update it, but then you will have to do the fetch updates, right? So yeah, that's how that works, right? And that basically leaves me with the summary. Let me just open up Omniverse here. And in summary, I would say that I think the platform is quite exciting. It has a lot to learn. I've been focusing on Machinima and Create so far. Tons of other applications. Keep in mind that NVIDIA is not in the business of making apps for the sake of making apps. It's all about the platform, the technology behind it, and to see where that grows in the future, right? Now, I personally think it's a game changer for sure. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. So let me know in the comments. Have you been using Omniverse? For what purpose? And how do you like it, right? Well, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long video, but that said, maybe you picked up a thing or two. And yeah, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.